Yo, yo, yo. What's up, guys and gals? Friday. Whoop, whoop. Making it. How's everybody doing today? We are kicking off our live stream today. We're going to be doing the SharePoint weekly newsletter roundup. Whoop. If you're not on the newsletter already, you should get on it. We got a link here in chat. I'm going to copy and paste that across all these platforms we're streaming to. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you're viewing, oops, wrong chat. Sorry about that. I pasted again. There we go. It's like super spam. But anyways, if you're not on the newsletter already, there's a link to register for it. It's a really awesome newsletter that our company puts out. We are Bamboo Solutions. Kevin Townsend, a managing consultant here at the company. And we do all things Microsoft, Office 365, SharePoint, yada yada, JavaScript development, since that's kind of the thing now for SharePoint extension. So that's where we live. That's what we do. So anyways, this newsletter is freaking awesome. Comes out every Friday, 8 a.m. If you're not familiar with it. And then here at noon, we go over it together. I just kind of walk through some of the news items and just have a chance for some community, you know? A little hangout. I'm going to close some browsers up. I just got off of a customer call, so yeah, bear with me here as I get a little bit of a late start this morning. I had the newsletter up. Where'd it go? I have not had a chance to review it before the stream today, so that's kind of a bummer, but we'll be going through it with you for the first time, potentially together. Together, forever. All right, here we go, here we go. All right, I got it up, so let's do this. Got a busy day ahead of me today. Hopefully your day is not as busy as mine and you're just chilling, getting ready for the weekend. But here we go. Let's talk about this newsletter. So it is a MailChimp newsletter. If you're not familiar with it, it's got all kinds of great functionality around it. You can subscribe to it, unsubscribe to it. If you view it in the browser, you've got an option to view past issues up here. So if I click on that, you can go back and check out last week's news as well. This newsletter compiles the last 7 days-ish. You know, it may span a couple of weeks if it's really strong news. But it'll go back the last 7 days and find the hottest news that we could in the SharePoint space. All right, so here we go. Let's dig in. So we got 3 sections to it: top news stories around the blogosphere and SharePoint events that are up and coming. Let's do this. Top news stories. I did see the subject line in the email did include a little bit about this, so I saw this was coming. The 2020 CU for SharePoint 2019, 2016, and 2013. I'm not going to go into detail on those, as I usually don't. There's just so many deep, specific things in those cumulative updates. Slow down, Kev. Slow down. All right. So we don't go into those, but I'll click on it, show you what that looks like. If you're a SharePoint administrator and you spend a lot of your time in that space, patching SharePoint and things like that, this is definitely important for you. You might want to dig into these and take a look at some of the changes before running those updates. Let's get down here to SharePoint security fixes released with January 2020 PU and offered through Microsoft Update. So, sort of related to the last news item we were just kind of hitting on. These are some of the security updates. See the security update guide below for more details about the relevant fixes. Again, not going to go into detail, but here you go. Look at that. All kinds of information here for you if you're in that admin space. And a way to filter down. I haven't seen this tool before, actually. Security update guide. Search for a CVE specifically or a KB article and actually filter by dates. Pretty cool. New to me. What else? Boost SharePoint and Microsoft Teams adoption. Heck yeah. That customer call I just got off of. Gonna be doing some serious Teams work there. Kind of noticing a pattern here where we're driving Teams as sort of the focal point for the organization, and SharePoint just kind of sits in the background and gets surfaced through Teams tabs and channels and yada yada. So boost SharePoint and Microsoft Teams adoption. What are we talking about here? This is from Christian Buckley. If you don't know him, you should, if you're in this space. What's he saying? When I first started researching and writing about SharePoint in 2004, I never imagined I'd still be involved with the technology 16 years later. Boom, 16 years. At that time, he says, had already helped build out intranets and project management solutions for several companies and had initiated... hold on, yep, just making sure my levels are okay. Had initiated a research project to examine the various communication, collaboration, and social technologies on the market. Anyways, 5 tips to increase SharePoint and Teams adoption. Have a plan. Start with the end in mind. Try to understand where you're trying to get to and why you're trying to get there. That probably will help you get a better roadmap going there. Make appropriate training available. Yep. We get these posts a lot in the newsletter. Everyone's got a very similar opinion for the most part as to how to improve adoption of SharePoint rollouts, prove the value. So I'm sure that during the training you may make some points to prove the value of that. He says specifically, don't treat SharePoint and Microsoft Teams as the latest shiny objects. Doing so will just make people feel as if they're being forced on them. The business value needs to be clear. True that. Number 5, have support in place, ready to go. Right, get that support team ready, get their knowledge base articles prepared, and get them ready to answer all those questions and make people feel at ease with that rollout. All right, what is SharePoint document conversation? This is cool. This is something that people are asking about already. And so this could be very helpful. I don't know why the page is jumping around so much. It says efficiency is one of the keys to success. This is from Scott Robinson over at searchcontentmanagement.techtarget.com. Especially if you're working in a fast-paced industry where every click counts, SharePoint made collaboration and communication more efficient with a feature called SharePoint Document Conversations. So SharePoint Document Conversations have existed for a few years now, but they've gained popularity as more companies migrate SharePoint content to the cloud. It says many orgs are just now reaching a point in their migrating their SharePoint content to the cloud where they're aware of SharePoint Document Conversations and able to make optimal use of them. So the benefits of SharePoint Document Conversation. It's the result of Microsoft's integration of SharePoint Online and the Yammer social network that enables users to share ideas, feedback, and opinions around documents stored in SharePoint Content Management System. So it's, in a nutshell, using Yammer's technology to allow you to conversate around a specific record, a document, in SharePoint. It says perhaps the most convenient aspect of the document conversation is that users don't have to open another app to initiate it. Amen to that. Users can seek feedback or expertise by commenting directly within the document. So this is particularly useful in the context of Teams, the lightweight successor to SharePoint's classic collaboration suite. It says project participants can readily review and discuss documents generated within Teams. For all this to work, the user has to configure Yammer as the default social network of the enterprise within Office 365. No screenshots. I was kind of hoping for a little bit of a snippet there. No, not seeing much of anything there. SharePoint document conversations are not limited to only documents. Users can initiate them from images, videos, or any other content object stored in SharePoint. The document conversation functionality itself is not just limited to SharePoint, but it's also available in OneDrive for Business. OneDrive. All right, let's move on to the next news item. Chromium-based Microsoft Edge hits a release milestone. That's right. I don't know if you can see that. No, you can't see the bottom of my screen, but I've got 4 versions of Microsoft Edge, this new version, installed. Got the new, what do you call it, GTM. I'd be interested in seeing doc conversations in action. Yeah, me too. I don't have an environment right now that's got Yammer set up as the default social network for my Office 365 tenant. That's something I'm probably going to need to go get a dev account for and test that out. That might be a good little webinar. Good idea, Nate. What's up, dude? Happy Friday. Why is that? Yammer is... it's not as adopted as you'd think in smaller companies. Maybe larger corporations incorporate it because it's more of a formal conversation piece than it is get stuff done. Usually if you're just trying to get stuff done, just trying to chat and communicate, that's what Teams is good for. And there's great infographics out there that explain where Yammer fits in. But it is in more of a formal conversation across the organization. What are they saying here? So yeah, the first stable release of Microsoft's Chromium-based Edge browser is now commercially available. Yeah, I got that one. I got the beta version, the dev version, and the Canary version, which works perfectly because when you support many customers across multiple tenants, having 4 browsers with incognito mode, so I can log into each of those tenants with their credentials. Yeah, that helps. So anyways, currently available for all supported versions of Windows and Mac OS in more than 90 languages, and is available for use in Android and iOS systems. I did update my iPhone yesterday to the new Edge. I had been using Test Pilot to do the beta versions, but it did update the icon for Microsoft Edge, I noticed. Yep. I do like the syncing across the system too. So now you can see here, I sync accounts. I can have multiple accounts in my browser that I sync. So every time I log into a Microsoft Edge browser, just like Chrome, it'll sync all my settings and whatnot. Oops, didn't mean to click on that. I don't think there are any other details there for this. Not a fan of that song. Gotta get out of there. All right, so what's next? AWS versus Google Cloud. After a big 2019, what does 2020 hold? I don't know. Where's this coming from? This is TechGenix.com. Full of the pop-ups. Thanks. Twain Taylor is his name. Says that in today's world, cloud computing plays a vital role in shaping the entire IT landscape. According to a report from Analysts, the worldwide cloud infrastructure services market grew 37% in Q3 2019 to reach $27.5 billion. So to grab a share of this growing cloud business and to lure customers, all small, large IT vendors are coming up with the cloud-centric initiatives and competitive offerings among all the cloud platform that exists in the market at present. So that's Amazon, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, GCP. That's 2 of the most prominent. That's interesting coming from... Is Google Cloud's platform really outpaced Azure? I didn't think that was the case. That's funny that he mentioned them as the prominent active players. He must be, let's see. Oh, it does say they're number 2 here. He says Microsoft Azure remains a powerful number 2 with a 16.9% share. Got it. It says Google's is making significant progress as at a blistering pace of 69% in comparison to 35% for AWS and 59% for Azure, as in 2018. So anyways, what's he saying here? Pricing comparisons, services, products, and customers, they're all going to be pretty similar, I think. Strategic partnerships and acquisitions, yep. Latency and downtime. Be interested to know, is he noticing a difference between these cloud platforms? AWS performs less efficiently in Asia, while GCP is almost 3 times slower than AWS to connect in India and Europe. All right, so that's internationally speaking. When connecting Singapore and South Asia, AWS and GCP were 1.5 times slower than other cloud providers. Okay, security aspects. AWS security model has also improved greatly over the past decade. Just like GCP, all data in transit between AWS, the customers, and data centers are encrypted. The data is encrypted under 256-bit AES, and each encryption key is also encrypted with a set of master keys. So for 2020, what's he saying? Said they're both capable platforms, but which one you choose will depend on various factors like your geographic location and latency in that region. All right. Yeah. What else? 10 cybersecurity trends in 2020 you need to keep an eye on. Business to community. Here we go. Come on. I clicked on the load thyself in thy browser. All right, 10 cybersecurity trends in 2020 you need to keep an eye on. This is from Dave Wallen, businesstocommunity.com. He says, cybersecurity is the chessboard where hackers and defenders are looking to checkmate each other. For now, hackers are on the winning side, which probably always will be. Hackers are outmaneuvering defenders by launching a ransomware attack every 14 seconds. They plan to get to 11 seconds by 2021. Is there like a global consortium of hackers? And they're like, all right, we got to get to 11 seconds next year. It's not just the speed. Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's a crazy number, right? But the variety of attacks that make hackers a formidable opponent also. So initially the grandmaster companies with fancy security infrastructure and a large cash pot were targeted. It doesn't matter whether you're the grandmaster or class C, D, or E player of the small business world, everyone's fair game. So what's he saying here? So we're going to talk about the 10 trends in 2020 that we got to keep an eye on. So number 1, fear will drive cybersecurity spending. Everyone has those KPIs, SLAs, for show. Even the criminals. Fear will drive cybersecurity spending. So it's an understandable fear, putting privacy regulation acts in effect, like the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and then the new CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, has pushed businesses and government agencies to a more sophisticated cybersecurity infrastructure. Scratch the surface and you realize why 76% of organizations plan to increase their budget. Yeah. Number 2, bridging cybersecurity skills gap quickly. So the prominence of the CIO, or the CISO, has risen across the boardroom. Unfortunately, the boardroom doesn't reveal the full picture. There will be 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity vacancies that need to be filled fast. Yeah, that's definitely where the focus is and the skill gap is. A pragmatic approach to cloud security. So for a long time, he says, everyone assumed that if data is stored in cloud applications like Microsoft or Google, it must be secure. The assumption is dying. Because the truth is the data you store in SaaS applications like G Suite and Microsoft 365 are not protected from attacks at your end, which includes human error, malicious deletion requests, or sync errors, or phishing, and more. So it's true. The responsibility does end up falling on the end users and their diligence, right? What else? 4, automation and integration will be a greater need. So the pressure to do more with less will increase the dependency of security professionals on automation and integration with the third-party apps. So that vast array of web app combining several web services are difficult to secure. And automation and integration solutions are becoming a necessity to reduce the workload. Number 5, mobile devices become a greater target. The number of mobile users continues to rise, and so does the amount of business data stored on them. It's a compelling reason why mobiles are seen as the primary cyber attack vector in 2020. So what makes it lucrative for hackers? He says it can override traditional security or secure email gateways. They're programmed to block phishing emails for protecting corporate emails on your mobile, but not personal emails, SMSs, and third-party apps. Number 6, the new decade of cyber warfare. So state-sponsored cyber attacks will be a significant cybersecurity trend in 2020 and beyond. Rogue actors will execute DDoS steal political and industrial secrets, spread misinformation to influence global opinions, and more. Yep. Number 7, election security will be the head turner. True that. In 2020, he's saying that there will be more than 70 elections globally. And of course, the most anticipated is the US presidential election. Hostile nations will definitely engage. Number 8, 5G, a hacker's paradise. The rollout of the next generation high-speed mobile internet, aka 5G network, will increase IoT-based attack. So 5G architecture is new, complex, and requires a higher level of security, excuse me, which many cloud vendors will not be able to provide. Number 9, the two-faced AI. AI plays for both teams. On one hand, AI is used by 61% of enterprises to proactively detect breach attempts. On the other, deepfake videos are orchestrated to spread misinformation and unconventional ransomware attacks. And finally, number 10 of the top trends to follow in 2020 in cybersecurity, a staggering 34% of all breaches in 2019 were a result of insider threats. Betrayal. Human element is the weakest and trickiest link in the game of cybersecurity. Boom. Just turn around, look at everybody in your office. Can you trust them? Yeah, thanks, Nate. I like that article too. That was pretty interesting. Yep, kind of combines all those things that we're all sort of aware of, but puts them right there in front of you in a top 10 list. So Windows 7 is dead. How to stay as safe as possible after the security updates stop. Why? I don't understand the reason. Why would you stay on it? So Windows 7, he says, this is coming from Brad Chacos over at PCWorld. He says that it's one of the best things Microsoft ever released. Really? I'm not there, man. The much adored operating system wooed back users who reviled the disappointing Windows Vista, and it remained a comfortable refuge during the even bleaker Windows 8 era. Even today, he says that Windows 10 fixing Windows 8's worst mistakes and standing as a superb desktop operating system of its own. A legion of vocal PC enthusiasts swears by Windows 7. Why? Because it stayed out of your way, and it just works. I don't know, man. I'm a little bit of a Kool-Aid drinker, though, so I can't really argue this point too well. Sticking with Windows 7 is not an option. Seriously, switch away from Windows 7 by whatever means necessary. That's our underlying recommendation. It was understandable before, he says, to stay with Windows 7, but now it's a liability. So with no security updates and a still vast market share, Microsoft's operating system will be a big, juicy target for those hackers we just talked about. They recommend migrating to Windows 10 if you're able to, and have a guide to explaining your Windows 10 upgrade options. There you go. Also recommending maybe go Linux if you're interested. Let's see here. You got customers with Win 7 vendor machines for instruments and such that would cost dollars to upgrade. True. There are legacy apps out there, but there's some pretty amazing compatibility capabilities, I thought, in Windows 10. Interesting. Choose your software wisely. That segues to a key point. He says, make sure that the software you're using still supports Windows 7 so that any potential security holes still get patched. After browser vulnerabilities, poisoned Office documents are another frequent attack vector. If you're still using Office 2007, stop it. Its support ended years ago. Office 2010 will continue to receive security updates through October 13th, so you have a little bit of time there. Microsoft will actually continue to support Office 2010 for the next 3 years until January 2023 if you subscribe to Office 365. That's funny. If that's not in your budget, though, check out our list of the best free Microsoft Office alternatives. Boom. Install antivirus software, he says. The free antivirus, definitely want to do that. Yep. Batten down. Which one did he recommend? The free antivirus that Microsoft offers for Windows users works great for most users, but it won't receive updates now that Windows 7 is end of life. You making a recommendation here? Again, another no copyright sound song I can't stand. Norton Security Premium, he mentions here. Batten down the hatches. Hackers can't hack what they can't touch. So follow this pro tip. What's he saying? You can go even further. Barring being purely disconnected, if there's a single tip that could make any Windows PC more secure, it's this. Stay away from administrator accounts. There you go. And then make plans to move on. That's right. Good article there. Timely, obviously, with Windows 7 being into life there. Last one here for top news stories. How do collaboration, integration, and interoperability differ? TechTarget. Getting a little deep here with Kevin Tolley. So collaboration comes in many flavors. He says you can collaborate using basic cloud-based file sharing, such as Dropbox. Are you kidding me? This is another one of those articles. I have got to talk to Chris Dooley. He does the newsletter for us. This is the second time now we've put this in here, and you got to sign up to read the rest of the article. Not cool. Let me make a note of that real quick. I can't be doing that. To Do, Microsoft To Do. You using that in Windows 10 yet? I love that app. Let's see here. Update Chris on what was it called? TechTarget. TechTarget. What are they doing? They're doing like a email gateway to get content. No likey. All right, around the blogosphere. Not so many this week. Interesting. Let's take a look here. So the around the blogosphere is where we go and find the things that enthusiasts and MVPs and people are writing about to solve problems that you may be having in the SharePoint space. So always some good finds here for workarounds or hacks or development tips or things like that. So let's see what we got. How to make SharePoint metadata columns required from the SharePoint Maven. SharePoint Maven, Greg's the man. So by now, if you have been following his posts, he says, you probably know that he's a huge fan of metadata. Me too, right? One of the questions he always gets is how to make sure the end users fill out metadata columns and do not leave them blank. In other words, you make SharePoint metadata columns required in a document library or a custom list. In modern SharePoint, the behavior differs and depends on a few factors. So let him explain. He says, how to make SharePoint, blah, blah, blah. There are two ways. Option 1, via column setting. So modern list or library interface looks something like this. You can make them required right in the column creation in the edit screen just by toggling this yes, no switch here. Required that this column contains information. So then the backend interface, if you use the backend to create or edit columns, here are the steps to make it required. You go down there, you click create column, you come down here and you click the yes, make it required. Option 2 though is via content type. If you use the content type functionality in your list or library, you'll need to make your columns required via content type settings. Here's how to do that. You got to click on the column name, you got to change the radio button to required, and click OK. So this is going in the content type. Yeah, so you got to navigate to your content type, edit the field that you're talking about there, and then go and change its setting to required. What else we got here? Scenario. What happens once you make SharePoint metadata columns required? So this is a good point. The reason I'm going into this one in detail is because this is common. This is very common. People want to establish metadata and they want their organization to have this tagging and this structured nature to their documents across their solution, and yet it's not enforced, or people are able to skirt the process. Right? So he says, once you make the columns required using any of the above options, the user experience will differ based on whether you apply the column to a list or a library, or whether or not you're using classic or modern experience in a document library. So he says, let's look into this. For the classic document library, if you're using a document library in classic mode, you upload a document via the upload button. You'll be prompted to fill in the required metadata, but if you decide to save the file, check it in without filling in the required columns, you will get an error message. However, if you choose to press cancel, that will happen. What will happen is that the document will actually be uploaded to the library, but will be invisible or hidden to everyone else. The document will automatically become checked out until the originator fixes the incomplete metadata fields. That's good. Same thing will occur if the user uploads, drags, and drops multiple documents to a document library. All of them will become automatically checked out and won't be visible to anyone else except for site admins and whoever uploaded them until that person sets that metadata field. For the modern experience, he says that the above behavior that we just talked about frustrates a lot of users and led to invisible files. So the way a modern library treats the required columns is different. First, if you upload a single document into the modern library, you don't have the pop-up hovering over the screen. Instead, a document panel on the right appears with a warning message saying, this is required information you need to fill in. However, you can leave the panel completely blank and not fill out any metadata, even required ones, and the document will be visible to the rest of the users, so just have the required metadata fields as blank. So required columns in a modern document library are not required or enforced. And the same thing will occur, he says, if you upload or drag and drop multiple documents. All of them will get uploaded. Let's see, how to mitigate that. User training. User training. Yeah, I mean, that's the answer, but we know how that goes. Required info warning. Just kind of making them aware of that, right? So when they go to the library, they're going to see there's required info missing here. Files that need attention. There's actual view now in modern libraries that allow you to do that. Nate says, how would you ensure good metadata tags by the end user? Guess you'd need good training to the workforce. Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying here. So in SharePoint, there are a couple of ways to handle metadata. You can use the term store, which is a very formal and structured way to tell the people what their options are for tagging things. And then you could use something like enterprise keywords, which are more like tags, fill in the blank. So people can actually create their own tags on the fly. As you start to type those in, it will IntelliType sort of present to you options that have already been added to the store so that you can just choose something someone else already typed in. You do have those options. Scenario 3 says classic or modern SharePoint list. Unlike document libraries, SharePoint lists honor the required columns. If the column is required on a list, you won't be able to save that entry in the list until you fill out all the required fields. That's true. It's just document libraries that really have that issue. Good post there, SharePoint Maven. I'll be using that in the future to help maybe point people to a solution or an explanation as to how that works. What do we got here? Solution survey app missing in SharePoint. NateChamberlain.com. What's he saying here? Once in a while, you'll want to use the survey web part for one reason or another. There are awesome tools like Yammer polls, Microsoft Forms, etc. But sometimes the only tool suitable for a specific use case is still the out-of-the-box SharePoint survey app. Hold on. I need to... There we go. All right, so if you search for it when adding a new app and we didn't find a match here, but check out, don't fret it, it's tied to a site feature that apparently isn't activated on your site. This applies to both on-prem, okay. So there's a team collaboration list feature in your site, apparently. When you activate it, your site will now be able to add those apps, which are things like this list, including surveys. Here's a quick GIF demonstrating it. All right. Cool stuff, handy tip. Hide SharePoint list from site contents. How do you do that? That might be something you want to do because you want people to not access the behind-the-scenes storage for some of your apps that you're building or something like that. So sometimes when building, he says, yep, oh, okay, we're going to use PowerShell to do that. There you go. So yeah, you could use the PNP PowerShell. Looks like the command is set PNP list, give it an identity, and then set it to hidden equal true. Boom. Technical post there for you. SharePoint tricks. That's who that's coming from. Latest SharePoint Dev Weekly. What's on this one? SharePoint Community Blog. There you go. You got Visa and Waldeck on there, and you got Hugo. Here. In this episode, what are we doing here? Latest news and announcements. Okay. Yeah. So there's a link there to go actually view this. Looks like you got your bullet points here of things that were discussed. You got the video recap. You got a bunch of links. So yeah, go check that out if you're trying to stay apprised to what they've been doing over there on the SharePoint blog. SharePoint Development Community PNP January 2020 update. There we go. Go check this out. What is SharePoint patterns and practices? There you go. GitHub repository forks at most popular repositories in SharePoint GitHub organization. The SP Dev docs, the #1 there. SP Dev FX web parts. January 2020 monthly community call, SharePoint Dev blog post, PNP community calls, SharePoint Dev ecosystem. So a bunch of stuff, bunch of stuff here. So if you're following that dev side of SharePoint, SharePoint Online, or any of that really, then great resources there. You're probably already plugged into the PNP community. If not, you should get in there. Good stuff. How to recover and restore deleted files in SharePoint. See what we got here. This actually came up in a customer call yesterday. If a document in a SharePoint library or list is deleted accidentally, the action can be reversed. However, for the process to work, you'll need to have your SharePoint list or library set to track versions. You gotta have versioning on. So only when that's done can you restore a previous version of a list item or a file. To restore an earlier version of a file in SharePoint deleted accidentally, you gotta access the SharePoint library, you gotta go to the version history section, and then you gotta restore the desired version. Let's see here, you've got some screenshots. So he went to, in the quick launch bar, he went to site contents. Then he went into a library, it looks like. Right click on the space between the item or document name and date. Yeah, I'm not following. Kind of skipped some stuff here. He went to the library and then he went straight to a document's version history. I'm not sure where that's at. Restore the desired version. Yep, I know these interfaces when you're actually in a library looking at a specific file, but what if someone accidentally deleted it? How do you get to the view version history of a file that's not in the library anymore? That's kind of what I was looking for. Restore a deleted file. Where's that? Huh, I'm gonna have to look into that one. Wasn't too clear. Last but not least, update spelling dictionary in SharePoint Online. So you can create a document library in the root site collection called spelling, add a text file to the library called custom-dictionary.txt, and then you add the words that you'd like to include in that you'd like SharePoint spell check functionality to recognize. The words are case sensitive. That's it. You just have to use a naming convention and it works. I had no idea. That's interesting. So there you could add like your acronyms for your organization and things like that, I assume, and they just would not show up with little red squigglies to tell you it's misspelled. All right, last but not least, SharePoint Events. So a bunch of SharePoint Saturdays coming up. I saw all the recap and excitement that came out of the Virginia Beach one, man. I was like, woof, look at that. People were pumped. So February 1st, SharePoint Saturday in St. Louis. You got Chennai, Cairo, you got Bremen, you got Sacramento coming up, and Omaha, and you got SharePoint Fest coming up in DC and Seattle here in April and August. What else we got? Office 365 Saturdays now in January 25th. You got San Diego. What else? Microsoft 365 Friday. You got Saturdays and Fridays and Microsoft 365 Fridays now. You got February 8th in Salt Lake City, SP TechCon in San Fran, February 18th through the 21st. We're going to be there, so if you're going, look us up. Rob Manfredi will be there, man in the tent, desk, the booth. Come see him, shake his hand. He's got some handouts, some cool stuff. Come get a little squeezy panda. Yeah. What else? You got Chicago Suburbs, Microsoft 365 Saturday coming up too. Wait! All right, guys. That's all I got. I got so much going on, and later this afternoon I got to get ready for, so I'm gonna just bounce off of this thing real quick. Nate, thank you for hanging out. Thanks for coming on and chatting with me, man. I appreciate that. I think I'm gonna be seeing you tomorrow. Is that right? Yeah. I think. I don't know. Is that right? I can't remember if tomorrow's the thing or is it Sunday. I don't know. That's how busy it's been. Anyways, yeah, take care, man. Take care all. See y'all next week, maybe on Wednesday for our little stream here at noon. We're gonna go over just kind of hanging out, I guess, talk about some news, prep for the webinar on Thursday, and then we'll just be moving on. All right, well, thank you. See ya. Have a great weekend.